We started a series last week, and the series is called Who We Are. And the reason we've got all these nice quilts hanging around is because we talked about the idea that a quilt is an interesting image because it's a patchwork that really puts together the story of a person or a family or a group of people, and it tells that story and it tells who they are and gives different representations of who they are. And so over the next few weeks, we're going to take that idea and say, okay, who are we as a people? Who are we as a community of faith? I sat yesterday with our leadership team. We spent about 3.5, 4 hours together yesterday morning just really mulling over that question of who are we? What does that mean? Where are we going? How do we take who we are and move forward with that? How do we express that in such a way that it fulfills the calling that God has placed on this church, as well as the people who are part of this church? And it was really cool to just sit and pray with the leaders of this church and really seek God and ask Him, how can we better understand and then better help those who are part of this community to grasp who we are and what it means to be a follower of Christ and a part of this community of faith. And how can we then take that and go and to really do what God calls us to do, make disciples of all nations. And so as we were working through that, one of the key questions was, who are we? What is it that makes us, us? And so what we're doing over the next few weeks here in the service on Sunday is we are looking at those things that define us, those values that shape who we are as a people, as a community, and how those values then, how we use those to make decisions, to move forward, to determine what is important, what isn't important, how we spend money, how we don't spend money, how we staff, how we provide programs or don't provide programs. It helps us decide all of those things because these values are really what define the boundaries of Terra Nova. Last week we talked about the calling of Terra Nova, and we said it's very clear from Scripture that we are called to share the gospel in many different ways, but most importantly, we are called to be a redemptive community of people who love God and love others. That's who we are. That's the calling that God has placed on this particular group of people. It can be applied to any other group of people, but that's the one that we sense God is moving in us from day one, 7.5 years ago when God sent me down here and said, go start a church. And I said, but I don't know how. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not good at this. He said, shut up, Jonah, go and do that. And I said, okay. So we came down and we said, yes, here we go. Let's do this. God, what is it that we are supposed to be? And He said, you are to be, there weren't words, okay? I didn't hear this light. There was no, vision or anything like that. But He's saying, listen, you need to be a community of people, a redemptive community of people who love God and love others. He said, keep it simple. There's no reason to make this really complicated, really hard, really complex. Be that group of people who are able to then reach out to those around them and share hope, share joy, share love. And that's part of the reason we're really trying to get back to Delaware, back in town where we're around people and we can share with them hope and love and joy. We feel a little isolated out here, at least I do, and maybe I'm just speaking for me, but hey, I'm the one with the microphone, right? We want to be in a place where we can truly be a redemptive community. And we can truly be a light to the people around us. And it's not that we're going to be banging people over the head with the Bible, right? But we want to be able to say, listen, we have a message. We have a life change that happened to us because of Christ, and we just got to at least live that out in front of you. And we want to serve you and love you and care for you and let you know that you're loved. And so over the next few weeks, we're going to talk about how we do that, what it means to be part of a community that does that. What is the DNA of this group? What is it that makes us us? I don't know about you, but the older I get, the more I have come to realize that I wear masks depending on the group of people I'm with. I have different personalities, it seems like at times, where, I'm with one group, I'm this type. When I'm in another group, I'm this type. And I really kind of, have different personas that I may at least emphasize when I'm around different groups of people. It's really awkward when two groups come together. You ever had that happen? Okay, right? When you got like your family, and then you've got your really good friends that you hang out with, and they all come to the same place, and they intermingle, and you have to like pull aside one group, and you say, hey, just so you know, when I'm around that group, I actually speak with an English accent, and really, you ever had, maybe I take that a little further than most, but you just get around people, and you wonder, and I realize the older I get, the less energy I have for that. And the more I realize how unhealthy it really is to wear masks, depending on the situation, to have a different personality, because it's so tiring. Really, it's just not easy to do. And so value number one at Terra Nova, I'm just saying it's real. And by that I mean we are going to be honest with God, with others, and with ourselves. We are not going to wear masks. We're not going to have a different persona based on which group you're in. If you're in your small group, you act this way, but on Sunday you act this way, and when you're out and about, you act that. No. We are going to be real. We are going to be who we are. And that means being authentic. And that's kind of an overused word, and it's hard to really take that and to really understand it because so many people use it and they don't, that means so many different things. But that's why I just chose the word real. When you come in here, you should be who you are. You don't need to walk in these doors and make sure that everything is on perfect, right? Make sure that your hair is right, that you're wearing the correct outfit based on what everyone else is wearing. You don't have to walk in and worry that you say the right things, do the right things, believe the right things. No. You need to walk in and understand this is a safe place where you can be you and we will love you. We will do our best to reach out and to be welcoming and hospitable to you because you are important. And we are going to be a group of real people. I don't want to have to worry about what mask I'm wearing or which persona I have or what I'm emphasizing or not emphasizing based on which church group I'm with. I'm going to be me. And I will rub some of you the wrong way at times. And on some levels, get over it. And on some levels, tell me. Say, gosh, that really hurt my feelings when you said that. Okay, let's work on it together. That's what being real is about, right? I mean, we have to actually communicate, and we have to not be afraid to talk and to express ourselves and who we are and what we think and to be us. If this is a group of people where you can't be you, you're not going to come back. I don't want to be a part of that. That's way too hard. I think, the interesting thing is that we all struggle with pretending on some levels, right? I mean, you've got your work personality, you've got your home personality, you've got all the different, personalities that you may have. And we may say, oh, that's just because, the devil made me do it, or my parents made me do it, or the culture made me do it, or this consumerism marketing that happens, that made me. No. Here's the bottom line. We do it because of our hearts, because we live in a world where we are fallen, where we are sinful, and sometimes we want to deceive others into liking us more. And that's just the bottom line. And until we admit that, it's not going to help to say, we're going to be real. We got to admit why we're not real at times. And if you have your Bibles, I would love for you to turn to Genesis 3 for just a minute, because I want to show you that this is not a new problem, okay? This problem came out many years ago. In Genesis 3, starting in verse 6, it says, "So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate, and she also gave some to her husband, who was with her, and he ate. Then the eyes of both were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves loincloths." Right from the start, they were hiding from each other as soon as they sinned. The very first thing they did after sinning, after breaking God's one rule, they started hiding from each other, from God, even from themselves. This started then. So this is not something that we are naturally just going to say, oh, well, we don't ever have to worry about this because, we're such a great community of people and we never, no, listen. If you're human, you struggle with this. If you're human, you got to take time to think about how can I be real and honest with those around me and with myself? Am I going to be willing to admit that sometimes I play a part? So how do we disguise ourselves? I mean, let's get practical for just a minute. There are different ways that we do it, and I think even from this text, we can see some examples of how we often disguise ourselves, hide ourselves, make sure that they only see the parts of us that we want them to see, and we hide the other stuff. I mean, the first thing that we often do is we sew fig leaves together. Right? In other words, we hide behind our good intentions or our good works or our successes, but we hide behind those things and we make sure that's the only thing people see. Right? We sew these fig leaves together and we try to make a wall around us. See, look how good I am. I did this and I did this and I serve here and I'm this and that's the only thing we want people to see. Because we're afraid if they look behind that, they would see the parts of us that are maybe not perfect and then they'll judge us or they won't like us. And so we sew these fig leaves together and we say, look how good I am. See, I did this, I did this, I did this. I mean, that's what Adam and Eve did, right? They sewed together fig leaves. They did it themselves. They didn't trust God to understand what happened. They didn't trust each other. They said, we are naked. We got to hide. Something's bad here. We got to cover ourselves. So they did. And we do that too. Don't we? I mean, all the time we are trying to hide from each other, from ourselves. We are hiding in the way we do things. We try to put things out to say, look at this, this is who I am. What do you think of this? How about this? But that's not what it means to be real with each other. Genesis 3:21 goes on to say later that God then made a covering for them. See, when they finally acknowledged and admitted what was going on, God made a covering for them. Now, if you read the verse, it also shows that in order to make that covering, an animal had to die, because it said he made coverings of skin for them out of an animal. So when we are real, there are times that we have to step back and go, okay, there's consequences to the negative things in my life, but I got to own those. I've got to own those if I'm going to move forward. Another way that I think we often try to disguise ourselves is distractions. Distractions. We want to look around and we want to find someone else to blame things on, right? I mean, what did Eve do? Adam said, well, look how bad she is. She made me do it. See how terrible she is. Look at her. Don't look at me. And then what does Eve do? She said, well, don't look at me. Look at the snake. He's terrible. You judge him. Look at him. He's terrible. How often do we do this? We try to distract the people around us. Oh, look at her. She's not dressed well. Oh, look at that. Look at that ugly hair day she had. Or maybe we look around another place. We say, well, just don't look at me. Look at this. Look at that pretty picture. But don't look at me. And we try to distract God, ourselves, right? We try to make it so no one really sees us and we don't even see us. Because we may not necessarily like what we see and we don't want to deal with it. And so we throw out distractions. We think, if I just hide my desire for popularity, for power, for fame, for anything, by making sure other people see other things and not that, then I'll be okay. No one will know what I'm really like. If you look in John chapter 8, there's a fascinating story fascinating where Jesus is teaching. It says he's teaching in the temple, okay? So he's there and he's got people around him and he's teaching, and the Pharisees interrupt him. Okay, it's like Sunday church, we're all here, we're worshiping, we're talking about the Lord, we're opening the Bible, we're studying together, and all of a sudden these group of religious leaders come in and toss this lady caught in adultery right in the middle of them. Now, if she was caught in adultery, that means she is probably still trying to get herself clothed. She is not a happy camper. She's embarrassed. This is a horrible thing that they've done to her, right? They've mistreated her. My first question is still, where's the dude? Okay, it takes two to tango, but he's nowhere to be found. And so they come in, they throw her in the midst, and they say, Jesus, look at her. Look how bad she is. The law says we should stone her. The law says she should die. She was caught. Look at how bad she is. Now, I love what Jesus does. Because, technically speaking, they were right. Right? The law of Moses, and they were trying to set him up, because if he said, yes, stone her, then all the people would turn against him. But if he says, no, don't stone her, then everyone would say, well, he's breaking the law of Moses. He's obviously not from God. So they put him in a pickle at this point, okay? It looked like there was no way out. And so Jesus, it says he kneels down and he's writing in the dust. We have no idea what he was writing. And he thinks about it, and he just quietly looks up. And he says, let he who is without sin throw the first stone. In that statement, he basically affirmed the law of Moses, but then he said, quit trying to distract me with her sinfulness. What about yours? You going to take time to listen and to think about and to confess your sinfulness, or are you just going to be distracted with everybody else's? And that's what churches do way too often. We start thinking about how bad everybody else is. We come to church and we sit around and, my week may not have been amazing, but man, I know what he did, and whew, I am way better off than him. At least I didn't do this or that, and we get distracted, right? It's not even that we're trying to distract God from us. There are times we just want to distract ourselves. We don't want anything to actually happen that we have to deal with. And so we throw out distractions because we don't want to be real. Jesus said in Matthew 7, he says, listen, why do you worry about the log in your brother's eye? Or why do you worry about the speck in your brother's eye when you got a log in yours? What is your problem? Why are you so focused on another person's issue when you've got your own that you won't acknowledge? He's saying, quit being distracted by all this stuff. Instead, look at what you need to do, what you need to deal with. Be real with yourself. Be real with the people around you. Third thing that I think we do, third way that we avoid this, we put on masks, we disguise ourselves. And it's really a simple one, is avoidance. Right? If I never slow down, then no one will see the real me, and neither will I. Right? If I'm always involved in something, if I'm always doing, I won't have to stop long enough to think about who I really am, to reflect on what's going on in my life. Because if I just keep going at 100 miles an hour, I never have to stop. No one ever has to know. In Luke 10, Jesus goes to Mary and Martha's house. And this is another one of those places where Martha is doing a good thing. She's preparing a meal. But Mary is sitting there at Jesus' feet, listening, learning. And Martha gets kind of ticked off. And says, Jesus, Martha is lazy and just sitting there, and I'm doing all the work. What's the problem here? And Jesus says, hey, Martha, Mary has chosen a good thing. You are so distracted with everything going on. You are trying to do. You're trying to go 1,000 miles an hour. You need to stop long enough to know who you are, to learn what you need to learn. Stop running around in circles. It's not about doing. It's about being the person God called you to be. So we disguise ourselves with fig leaves, distractions, by avoiding it. When I read Acts 2:46, okay, now let's get back to the church, who we are. When I read this, I begin to see what a community could really look like. Okay, I understand that the early church in Acts chapter 2 and Acts chapter 4, this was not prescriptive of how a church has to operate. Because let's face it, this was an amazing time. The apostles were walking around doing miracles upon miracles. I mean, the tongues of fire came and they were speaking in strange languages and everybody could understand and thousands were coming in and they were doing just amazing stuff. And it's not that that's prescriptive, like we have to do it exactly that way because we don't have a temple that we can go meet in the temple porch and do that on Saturdays and we just can't do it that way. But I think it is very descriptive of what the church can be like. Because when you read the end of Acts chapter 2, when you read verse 46, it says that they ate and drank together with glad and sincere hearts. There were no needy people around them. Why? Because they would give to each other as needed. They were together. And when it says they were together with glad and sincere hearts, you can't have a sincere heart unless you are real and honest. Right? You can't walk into somebody's house and put up a bunch of barriers between you and them and have a sincere heart. And so if we are going to be a community of people who really and truly become that new kind of community that God has called us to be, we have to be willing to lower the disguises, to lower the masks, to lower the barriers and say, listen, I want you to know who I am and I want to know who you are. And I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to condemn. I'm here to love you. And this place is a place where you can come and you can be real. And it's okay if we don't agree with everything. It's okay if your lifestyle doesn't match my lifestyle because we are going to work together to move towards Christ, whatever that means. But we got to be real with each other. That's why Paul said in Ephesians chapter 3, verse 10, he's talking and he says, listen, the church exists so that it may make known to the world the message of hope that God has given us. The church exists for this. This isn't just an individual, hey, you have to go stand on the street corners and present the gospel. No. He says the church exists for this because people want to see that there is a place, there is a community, there is a group that they can be a part of and be themselves and be loved and be accepted in the same way that God loved and accepted us. While we were yet sinners against God, Jesus died for us. People want to know that there's a place they can come and hear that message without being condemned. Rather, let the Spirit move in them. Rather, allow God to do His work. So how do we do this? Let's wrap this up. Overcoming our bent towards wearing masks. There are just two things I want us to work on as a community of faith. A couple things I want us to do so that we can truly be real. We can be honest with ourselves, with God, and with those around us. First of all, you got to trust who God says you are. You have to trust who God says you are. I don't know about you, but me, I am more often than not, I am worried about what everyone else says who I am. I'm worried that they like me or they want this or that or the other, and I'm thinking about that. And I forget what God says about me. And if we're going to be real, if we're going to feel like this is a safe place where we can be real, then it's got to start with us trusting in what God actually says about us. Have you ever stopped long enough to really think about what God says about you? I threw a couple verses down there. Just think about this. Galatians 4:7. He says that you are an heir to the throne, an heir in the family of God, in the kingdom of God. Okay, an heir, that's a privileged one, right? That's not just some lackey. That's not, the stepchild that nobody cares about, okay? You are an heir in the family of God. In Romans chapter 8, verse 15, it says you are adopted into the family of God. That means He chose you. He wasn't stuck with you. Did you catch that? God wasn't stuck with you. He chose you. He didn't have to. Which makes me think he might actually like you. Do you trust that? Colossians 1:12 says that you have been qualified by God to be in his family. It's like walking into the bank, right? What do you got to get qualified for a loan, qualified for this, qualified. God says, no, guess what? You come into my family, bam, you're qualified. Why? Because I said so. That's comforting. I didn't do anything to get it. I'm qualified because he said I was. In 1 Peter 2:9, long list here. He says, one of my favorite verses, he says, you are what? You are a chosen race. You are not just that, you're a royal priesthood. You're a holy nation. The last one's my favorite. You are God's own people. You are God's own people. That's who you are. Do you trust that? I mean, that is the real you. There isn't 14 other versions of this. That is the real you. God says you are qualified. You are adopted. I chose you. You are special. You are loved. You are royal. You are holy. Why? Because I said you are. Will you trust that? Or are you going to keep trying to put fig leaves together that aren't nearly going to cover you the way God can? Second thing we have to do is we have to make this a safe place to be mask-free. We have to make sure that this community is a place where people can come and they don't feel like they have to put on a mask. Because if they feel that they do, then it's not a redemptive community. If they feel like they have to be something they're not, if they have to be perfect, if they have to be just, have the right looks, have the right clothes, do the right things, say the right words, sing the right notes, if they think any of those things and they feel like if they don't have that, they won't be accepted, then this is not a redemptive community and we have to change. This needs to be a safe place for people to take off their masks and not feel like they're going to get kicked out because they don't match what everyone else looks like. Now, it's pretty obvious. We live in Delaware. Delaware is 97% Caucasian. Okay, so I would love to say we're going to be this blended, all these. Well, the problem is there just aren't that many people in Delaware who aren't looking kind of like us in some way, shape, or form. But you know what? You all have different belief systems, even if they're just slightly different. You all have different personalities. You all have different incomes. You have different jobs. You have different socioeconomic statuses. You have different lots of things. You have different families, right? Backgrounds. I grew up in Kentucky. Trust me, after spending Christmas down there, I know what I came from. And I'm really glad you still like me. There's things like that. We have to be willing to say, this is who I am, and I may be different from you, but guess what? We will be together. We will live together in community because this is a place where God is present, and he already said that you're okay, and I'm okay. So let's do this together. Let's make this a place where you can come in and be who you are. And then in the midst of that security, that safety, you can then hear the truth of the message of God. And that truth can set you free. Because if you're so worried about masks and defenses and walls and barriers, then the truth can't get through to you and you won't be able to hear it. But if this is a safe place, then the truth will bless you. It may challenge you. But it will be a blessing, and it will spur you on to be all that God has called you to be. But it's got to be a mask-free zone where people can know, I can hear, because the people here are loving, and they're real. And so I'm willing to listen and see what God has to say to me. As a redemptive community, we're going to be real. We're going to be honest. with God. We're going to be honest with each other. We're going to be honest with ourselves. No masks allowed in this church. No faking it. No condemning those who don't have it all together. No condemning those who disagree with you. It's okay to debate. It's okay to talk. It's okay to have conversations. But we're not condemning. We are going to let God's redemptive love fill every nook and cranny of this church. And that may be this building, it may be another building. That building doesn't matter. It will fill every nook and cranny of the people of this church. Because God said, I will take the church, and that will be my message to the world that I love them. Will you be real with me together and build that redemptive community of people who love God and love others? Lord Jesus, thank you that you love us and that you have given us so much. I pray your blessings on the men and women that are here today. I pray your blessings on the men and women of Terra Nova who are not here today, who are off doing other things, even for you, and serving you in different ways. I pray that we would all be a light in this world. And God, I pray with all my heart that this church would be a mask-free zone. It would be a place where we can come and we can be real and we can love each other. We do that because you called us to that, and we know that originally, Father, before we messed it up with sin, that was how it was. That was how you created us. And God, we want this to be a tiny piece of your kingdom at work on earth. A tiny little place where your love reigns and your grace reigns and people are restored to what you called them to be. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.